Assalamu alaikum, this is Fahim, and in today's video I'm going to build a project, and basically I'm going to create a game, the famous game Tic Tac Toe, using Python. Now I know that many of you might be wondering that what is Tic Tac Toe. Well, let me show you what is Tic Tac Toe, and then I can guarantee that you would be able to remember that you have already played this game in pen and paper or pencil and paper or something like that. All right. So if I simply open my paint and let me try to remind you that, you see, sometimes we used to play these games on pen and paper, right? This is a two-player game basically. So one player gives, let's say, x, and the other player uses o, or you can say the 0. And if one player has horizontal move all of them like this, he wins, or this, he wins, or like this, they wins. All right, so something like that. So basically we are going to build the exact type of game using Python. Now, as I have already told you that this is a two-player game, so obviously you can create some game like two of you are playing together. So don't worry, as I am going to show you all of the processes step by step. So make sure to watch the complete video and don't skip any part of it. All right. Now, basically the script that I'm going to use today is somewhat similar to a blog post in hacker.io. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, then I have taken it from hacker.io. All right. So I can't remember exactly from which post I have got that, but don't worry, I'm going to explain all of the lines step by step so that you won't miss any single thing out of it. All right. So I know this is my file and this is my code. And for example, before trying to teach you how to write this code, let me simply run this code and show you how it works. So let's say I'm simply running this code. You see, this is our board, and now player zero's turn. So you have to enter the row and column number to fix your spot. And you can see this is the first row, this is the second row, this is the third row, and this is our first column, this is our second column, this is our third column. So let's say I want to place my spot here. So this would be 1, 2, second row and second column. So I have to specify my spot like these two. The first one is for the row, as you can see it has mentioned here, and the second one is the column 2. So that means that I am trying to fix my spot in the second row and the second column. So if I simply enter, you see that my position is fixed right here. And now the other player's turn. All right. So let's say the other player somehow wants to fix the same spot, 2, 2, second row and the second column, but it won't give you that space because that has already been fixed by the other user who is using 0. All right. So let's say I can provide something like 1 and 1. That means first row and first column, this spot. Cool. And player zero's turn. So let's say something like second row and the third column. Cool. And the player x turn, let's say he's giving something like first row and second column. Cool. And I want player 0 to win the match, so I have to grab this spot ASAP. So 2 number row and the first column. Cool. You see, player 0 wins the game. So that's how it works. Cool, right? So let's start building our game, shall we? So I'm simply deleting everything from my file, and let me simply implement this game from the initial position. So first of all, I need to create a class, and let me name my class something like Tic Tac Toe to keep it similar to our project, right? So I defined a class named Tic Tac Toe to encapsulate all the game logic and functionalities in it. Cool, right? And now I'm going to implement an init method that serves as the constructor for the class. All right, so that would be something like div and init. So it has provided me with a boilerplate. So let me simply edit it to suit my needs. Div init self, and all right. Here I need to initialize my board attribute, which will necessarily represent the game board itself. So this would be something like self dot board. And now I have to create another function for creating the board. So I can simply use another function like div and create board. And then obviously it would be self. Then I have to initialize an empty 3 into 3 board with dashes, because as I have already told you that if I simply consider this tic-tac-toe game, I am getting 3 into 3 2D matrix, right? Because I have 3 rows and also 3 columns. So I'm simply gonna create those in this function. So I'm simply specifying that it needs to initialize an empty 3 into 3 board with dashes, the empty board for the initial state. All right. So this would be something like self.board equal to, then the empty dashes would be like this. So here, well, if you are wondering why I am doing this, so this create board method is actually responsible for creating an empty 3 into 3 game board. So I am simply using a nested list comprehension here to create a 2D list filled with this type of dashes that represents the empty spot in that specific board position. All right. So for dash in range 3, and then for dash in range 3, like this. As this is a nested, so this would be like this. As tic-tac-toe is a 2-player based game, so any player might start the game. So if we play the game physically with another person, what we normally do is that any one of us might start a game. We get that kind of privileges. But as this is a console game, I mean, we are building a console game using Python. So there might be possibility some kind of conflict, like which player might start the game. Is it the player who chooses 0, or is it the player who chooses cross? So here I'm going to create something like this, that the computer will decide which player will start the game, whether it will be the player who chooses 0 or the other one. So I'm going to use random functionality so that it generates which player starts the game randomly. All right. So let me simply create another function for that. Let's say div get random first player. All right. And this would be self, obviously. So here I am going to add the functionality for randomly choosing which player goes first. All right. So I will be using the random package, random library, you can say that. So I have to import that package first to use that. So I can simply use import random. And after importing it, I can simply use the functionality of this random anywhere I want. So this would be something like return random dot randint 0 or 1. So I'm specifying that it will return any value, whether it's 0 or 1. I mean, I am simply telling it that you can return only two values, 0 and 1, but you have to do it randomly. All right. So as I'm gonna use 0 and cross for specifying the player, so I can simply use something like, if it returns 0, the player which takes 0 will initiates, or you can say starts the game. But if it returns 1, then the player who chooses cross will start the game, something like that. And then I have to create another method to mark a spot on the game board. with the player's symbol on it. All right. So I can simply create another function. Let's say div fix, sorry, fix spot and self, then row, column, and the player itself. All right. So this will simply mark the spot on the board with the player's symbol. So this would be self dot board and then row column equal to player. So as I was telling you, the fix spot method is simply used to mark a spot on the game board with the player symbol, whether it's X or 0, or you can say cross or 0. All right. And now I have to define the function to specify which player has won the game. So I can simply use another function. Let's say div has player on, and the parameter would be self, and the player itself. And now I have to check if the player has only rows, I mean row wise, I mean how can I say this, if a player has all the moves in a specific row or in a specific column or in a specific diagonal, then he wins, as I was telling you the logic earlier in my paint software. All right, so I have to check if the player has only in rows, columns, or diagonals. So first of all, I need to grab the length of this board. So it would be length of, sorry, self dot board. Okay, and for I in range m, now I have to check the row. So checking rows. So if all self dot board I specifies rows and j specifies columns, by the way, equal player for j in range, and then it returns true, that yeah, the player has all the moves in a specific row, so definitely he wins. And now I have to do the same thing for column, checking columns. So this would be something like if all self dot board I j player or j in range. I'm using j because j implies range, right? For j in range and range of m, obviously, then I have to return true, because this implies that this player has all the moves in a specific column, so definitely he wins. And now I have to check the diagonal. So this would be a little bit of tricky. So I have to move out from this for loop, and now I need to check the diagonals. So this would be something like if all self board I j equal player or I in range n, it will return true. And if you can't remember, we normally have two diagonals. Let me simply show you. So let me change the color. So we have this diagonal and we have this diagonal. So we have two diagonals to check whether a player has all the moves in this specific diagonal or this specific diagonal. If a player has all the moves in a specific diagonal, definitely he wins. So this is for checking a single diagonal, and definitely I have to check the other diagonal as well. So if all self dot board I j, sorry, this would be different because you see that if I consider this diagonal as from ascending order, then this is the descending order. So this is one diagonal is kind of opposite to the other diagonal, so this would be something like n minus I minus 1. All right, then equal player for I in range of n, then it will return true. And if nothing is true, then obviously it would return false. So our has player own function is complete. This function simply checks if the specified player has won the game by examining rows, columns, and diagonals for a complete line of the player symbol. Let's say X or O, right? And now I need another function to check if the game board is fully filled with player symbols, and if all spots are occupied. I mean, all spots are occupied means there are no dashes. All of the spots have been filled. So we can consider that that board is considered filled. All right. So I can simply use another function. Let's say the this board filled. So cool. And it would simply check if the board is completely filled with any kind of symbol. So symbols, definitely we have only two symbols, 0 or cross. So there goes that. So return all self dot board I j not equals dashes, because it would check whether there is no dashes or something like that for I in range 3, because there are 3 columns and 3 rows for j in range 3. All right, and then I need another function to swap the player turns. So that would simply takes the current player, whether that is X or 0 as input, and returns the other player symbol. And I will use that to alternate between players in the game, because if one player plays his game, then the next turn would be for the other player. So I have to use a function for that. I mean, obviously you can use that in your main function, as the professional way is to use different function for different functionality. So I'm simply gonna use a new function. Let's say diff swap player turn, and this would be self player. All right, so this will simply swap players turns between X and 0. If player X plays, then the next play would be from player 0, something like that, and vice versa, obviously. So return X if player 0 else 0. Sorry, if player equals 0 else 0. Then I can simply use another function to display the whole board. So let's say deep show board. And now I need to display the current state of the board. All right, only the current state of the board, not the initial stage, not the finishing state, only the current state of the board, so that the player might understand whether, I mean, in which spot they want to fix the spot for themselves when their turns come. All right, so for row in self-start board, I need to print dot join row, and then I have to print the whole board. So this show board method displays the current state of the game board, and it prints each row of the board with spaces between the symbols. All right, and now I need the main function of this project. So this would be the div start. So let me simply name it tstart function. This method will be my main function that initiates and controls the game loop. It also handles player turns, user input, checks for a win or draw, and lastly display the final result. So look it careful. All right, so first of all I need to create the board, obviously, because other than that, how can I start a game, right? And then I have to specify the player, which player initiates. So player equal to x e self dot our get random first player tells us that equal 1 else 0. And as I'm simply starting the game, so I'm gonna use a variable, let's say game over, and I'm specifying that it's false. As I have just started the game, so the game is not over. All right. So while my game is not over, so while not game over, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use try catch block to handle the exceptions, of course. So if the game is not over, it will show me the board first, and then it would provide the player's name. So player, and then which player, player's turn, so that both of the players can understand which of them need to place their spot. Okay, and now I need to get the user input for the row and column to fix that specific spot. So let's say row column equal to list. Definitely I'm gonna use a list, and I need to map something here. So map integer input, and now I need to enter row, and I'm simply specifying that for the players column uh, numbers to fix your spot. And then I need to, sorry, I need to split that like this. And then I have to print that also. And now I need to convert the zero-based index for internal board representation. Because if you are familiar with the uh, array index concept, then you know that array index always starts from 0. But for the simplicity for the user, I am specifying that this would be 1 number row, this would be 2 number row, and this would be 3 number row, and the same goes for the column as well. But under the hood in Python or in any other language, as I'm using a 2D matrix array, definitely, so array index always starts from 0. So program initiates it like this would be 0 number row, this would be 1 number row, this would be 2 number row, and this would be 0 number column, this would be 1 number column, this would be 2 number column, and like this. So as that doesn't create any problem under the hood, I have to convert the zero based index for internal board representation. So I can simply decrease the row. So you can use row equal to row minus 1, or for the simplicity, let me use 0 minus 1. Sorry, row minus equals 1. And I need to do the same thing for the column as well. So there goes that. And now I need to check if the spot is valid and not already taken, because multiple players cannot select the same spot more than once, definitely. So I need to specify that as well. So if 0 less equal row less than 3, and 0 less equal column less than 3, and self dot board row then column equal dash, then all right, I have done a terrible mistake because earlier I used underscore here, but I'm using dash, not underscore here. So let me check those again. For this would be for dash, not underscore. I'm extremely sorry for that. But this would be underscore definitely, because these are variables. So something like this would be dash. Let me check for something like whether I have used this. No. So I guess this is all right. fear not, when I'm gonna run this game, I mean run this script, definitely I'm gonna get the errors and I need to solve that. As simple as that. So if the spot is valid or already taken, then start. I need to fix the fix spot in that row and a specific column for that specific player, of course. All right. And now I also need to check if the current player has own or not. So if start has player own function, and I need to pass that specific player, of course, then it would simply print that that specific player has owned the game. So player wins the game, like this. And if I have already got my winning player, then definitely the game is over, right? So game over. Else the player, I mean I haven't got any player who owns the game. So solve is board filled, is board filled. I need to check whether the board is filled or not, because if no player wins the game but the board is already filled, then that means that we have got a tie, and that means our match has been drawn. So I will simply specify that match is draw, like this, and definitely our game is over. So game over, true. And if nothing of them happens, then that means the board is, I mean the board has blank spot yet, and we haven't found our winning player, so I have to continue the game. All right, so else I need to swap the player so that other player plays their turn. So player equal to sub dot swap player turn, and I have to pass the player. All right, and then else I have to provide, sorry, the invalid spot. Try again. Then accept value error as error and print the error, like this. Well, now I need to print everything and show the board current state. All right, so there goes our start function, and now I have to provide my initialization to start a game. So I can simply use something like if name equal main tic tac toe equal to tic tac toe. I'm simply calling the class, and then tic tac toe dot start. That's it. So I have created an instance of the tic tac toe class and called the start method to begin the game. So definitely it would be like this. Let me simply run this. Player 0 turn. All right, so it starts the player 0 as the first player. So now I am acting as the player 0. So let's say I'm gonna fix my spot here, second row and the third column. So second row and the third column. Error, J is not defined. All right, I have some error in line 28 and 65. So let's say line 28, checking diagonals. Well, I have done a mistake. This would be J, this would be I, because I'm checking the diagonal, right? So let me simply run it again. Now for the player X turn as the first player, so I am simply fixing my initial spot, that is second row and the third column. Cool. Now player zero's turn, let's say first row and first column. Done. Player X turn, let's say first row, third column. Cool. Player zero, let's say first row, second column. And let's say I want to take the same spot that the other player has taken. So that should show me the invalid spot. Let me simply check it out. First row, first column, invalid spot, try again. So it works. Player X turn, let's say third row and third column. Third row and third column, player zero turn. But player X should already be winning the match, right? So obviously there is some mistake. So let me simply check it out. Player zero turn. All right, I need to check the code again. Well, I have done a mistake here as well. Return X if player equal capital O, else capital O, not zero. All right, so let me simply start the game again. Player X turn, let's say 2 3, let's say 1 1, then player X turn, so 1 3, and then 1 2, then 3 3. Still player zero turn, that means still there are some errors. Let me simply fix that for you. All right, I have done the same error here as well. This won't be zero, this would be capital O. So like this, let me simply start the same process again and see if it fixes or not. So let's say 1 2 3, then 1 2, then 1 3 0. So let's say 2 1, let's say 3 3. Still there are issue. All right, let me check again. Maybe I have done the same mistake again. Let me simply check it out. So as I am getting the error, so obviously the error should be in the player on function. Oops, this would be swapped. This would be J and I. Now I think it should work. Let me simply try it out again. So player 0, player X, player 0, player X, player 0, player X. Player X wins the game. So now it works. So that's it for today. If you like this video, then please make sure to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and if you like this kind of video, then don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And if you want, you can follow me in GitHub, GitLab, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'll provide all the link in this video's description box. So see you again.